Welcome to Walking with God with Kyle Walker. We are obviously not Kyle Walker, but we are here for a summer short. I'm Katie Duncan. I own From Scene Media. You guys have seen me on previous episode, but I am joined by some of my favorite people today. So I'm going to start that direction, and they are going to introduce themselves to you.
I'm Jenny Scott.
I'm Chris Pugh.
And I'm Heather Gray.
And these ladies are some of my closest friends, and so I invited them along because today we are going to talk about the importance of having a strong group of people that you can be authentically yourself with, and the importance of having people that you feel like you can express your true emotions around, and how to break out of a negative cycle while still acknowledging that sometimes life happens and not everything is always wonderful. So I'm going to start with this quote that we were just reading, and then you guys can give me your opinions.
Okay.
Sounds good? Okay. So you guys might have seen this on Facebook lately because it's been shared a lot, but when it came out, it super spoke to my heart. So I felt like we should discuss it a little. So it says, "Not sure if this will make sense to anyone besides me, but the antidote to negativity is not positivity, it's warmth. Positivity tells the sad person that there's no reason to be sad. Warmth asks the sad person if they want to go get some ice cream." So tell me your thoughts.
I agree with that because if I'm sad, I don't want you to just tell me that everything's going to be okay. I want you to acknowledge that I'm sad and try to do something to make me happy or help me. And ice cream helps for everything.
Ice cream is the answer to every
Or
problem.
sometimes it's just a matter of distracting us from our problems too. Distracting you from what's going on. That you're like, I can't deal with this. Let's go get some ice cream.
Yes. And the fact is that you're acknowledging that, hey, I'm sad, I need help. I don't want you to tell me, oh, well, that's not good. I want you to actually try to focus on it a little bit and then take me somewhere to get my mind off of it, because you have to let it out before anything can get better.
I think that's one of the most important things. We actually talk about that a lot in different support groups I've gone to and counseling things, because when you are open enough to express that you're struggling or something's going on, and everybody says oh, everything will be okay, or the infamous well, everything happens for a reason, you completely just diminish everything that they said, and so it minimalizes the complete struggle and everything they're going through. So that's actually super not good mentally. I remember when I was working on my psychology certification, and they talked about how many people just say that, and then the effects it has on the brain of the person that's actually dealing with things, because you completely ignore the experiences they're having. And also when that happens, the person's way less likely to express it later. I know if I go to somebody and I'm like, oh, hey, this is what's going on, and they're all like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason, I'm probably next time just not going to say anything. So I feel it completely shuts down the whole conversation. It makes people bottle things up inside, which also is not a good situation.
I know a discussion I had one time with my husband was, it's men and women tend to think differently too in regards to that. It's women, we like to talk about things and not necessarily ask or need an answer. Sometimes talking through things helps us to figure out an answer to what's going on.
Right.
But we don't necessarily need somebody to give us oh, here's what you should do kind of thing. Whereas men tend to always try and fix things, and God love them, they're great, but and sometimes that's what I used to tell my husband is sometimes I just need you to listen to me and I'll figure it out, and it's not a matter of trying to fix me all the time. Just listen to me,
Right. And I was with somebody I had that problem with because they wanted to jump in and fix things and give me solutions, which sometimes was also super frustrating. So I'm I don't need you to fix this right now. So then I would have to start saying, at the beginning of the conversation, I would be okay, we need to come up to a solution for this, or I'm just venting right now. Because if I said I'm just venting right now, then they would know, please don't try to fix this for me. I'm just venting my frustration, and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that there is a real thing of you can get trapped into a cycle. So you can get trapped into a cycle of well, yesterday was a bad day, so now I'm talking about yesterday being a bad day.
Mhm.
And so now today's a bad day because all I'm talking about is yesterday being a bad day or the day before. And so at some point you have to break out of the negativity cycle. And although it is super important to like express all of your emotions, and there's a lot, we were going to show you a picture of the whole like emotions wheel, but there's like, you guys can't see it, but there's hundreds and hundreds of emotions on it. So you need to acknowledge all of them. But when you're experiencing the emotions that are on like the negative side of the wheel, what are some things you guys personally do to help pull yourself back up out of it?
My personal, and some people laugh at me, but my thing to do when I'm really upset is I clean. I just like get into like a cleaning frenzy, and I don't know if it's having that really clean, organized space helps clear my head, and it just makes me feel more comfortable. So I don't know if it's I don't think it's the act of cleaning, but more the end result, being in that, space.
Maybe that energy or something.
Yeah, I don't know, or maybe I'm burning off the
You and my daughter are very
energy.
similar because my daughter does that when she's frustrated. She'll clean, which is fine, to the point of where I'm like, okay, you're doing a little too much and you're making me crazy.
Well, like, yeah, when my dog got sick and went into the hospital a couple months ago, my house was already clean. So I went and spent a couple hours and I cleaned my son's apartment. And believe me, it needed it.
Oh, yeah. God bless it, right? Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
that's my personal, what makes me feel better and what I do when I really get into that.
I know. For me, music, I mean, listening to music, I have like on my phone, I have a little thing that it has a bunch of inspirational and positive type, and it helps me to get into some, doing some fun things, sing along to some fun songs, and it just kind of helps me get at least step away from it. It's not that it makes it better, but it just helps me to kind of focus on something else besides what's going on in my world, and that helps me to kind of put in a better frame of mind, and maybe I'll clean while I'm doing it. Who knows?
For me, I kind of like just sit there for a minute, take a minute for myself, and then just kind of reflect on like what is the issue. And then I want to acknowledge it, and then I will, like you said, put on some music, kind of have like a dance party with the kids, just to try to boost the atmosphere in the house, because most of the time it's because of the kids. Like, I'm frustrated.
It raises those endorphins a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they love music and they love to dance. So like that's like one thing that helps us is just put on some music, and then we just all dance, and like it's usually worship music. So like we just worship and I pray and stuff like that. And that helps me through as well too.
So I do a couple different things. I journal a lot. So if it's something that I know is gonna like stay on my mind, then I will journal, or I'll even like blog about things, because otherwise it's still in the back of my mind. But I feel like once I have it written down in some format, then I've like kind of like release that energy and can move on to the next thing. I used to not do that because I was like, well, that's giving that like too much energy or space. But I realized like I would keep coming back to it. So I do that now, and I have learned that like once it's written down, I at least feel like I've expressed it, even if it's just expressing it on paper and nobody's gonna read it. So that's helped. So I do that. I do music. I have to be careful with music for me because music definitely can like break me out of a cycle. But with my other job with the media company and with some things, sometimes listening to music all of a sudden like flips my brain into work mode. So I have to be very intentional with what I'm listening to. I used to like just turn on the radio or have Alexa play whatever, but now I have like a specified like playlist. Like this is my motivational playlist, and I'll play like my motivational one instead of just like letting somebody else be in charge of the music. Because like if a song comes up that I'm like, oh, I have that show I'm working this week, or I'm writing this review, then all of a sudden like then my brain's like overacting on the stress of that. So I have to, I obviously love that, but it's not like the relax, like pull me out of things. But the outdoors are a huge one for me too. Like Ashley and I go places. I'm like, go like hiking in the woods, or like just even like a walk outside. And I didn't know, like they say like you can't get healthy in the same environment you got sick in. So I think like changing the environment is big for us too, if that's an option.
Yeah. I also did like online support groups, like even through Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
because you guys know that my dog ended up dying suddenly. They have some the Rainbow Bridge support groups for animal loss,
Right.
and they have one that she's a pet medium. And I know that sounds really silly, but some of the things that she said actually made me feel better, just because it was so sudden, and not being there. And my mom said I took it so hard because I felt guilty, and I really thought about that. And some of the things that were being said in there was like, not being there, like the animals sometimes know up to 48 hours prior. And if like her passing at the hospital and me not being there or whatever is their gift to you, and like that kind of thing really made me feel so much better about the whole situation.
That
I
makes
don't know.
sense. Yeah. Yeah. So it gave you, like, I mean, it kind of confirmed, that everything
Yeah,
was
it was
okay.
like she didn't want me to see her
Right.
like that. She wanted me to remember her like running around outside.
Right. Right.
So I mean, that made me feel a lot better. So just that support from people that are going through the same thing.
Right. I know a couple of you have gone through that lately. Okay. So sometimes I know there's
Sorry.
things that like trigger different things. Are you okay? Sorry.
I'm
That's fine.
sorry.
No, that's fine. No, because mine died in my arms, so that was like,
Yeah, you guys
That's what she wanted.
have very different experiences of the loss.
the loss of an animal.
Yeah. So I know that there's things that like I'll call them triggers, but like, and it's almost the same like in anything, like with mental health, with addiction, with anxiety, with, I mean, don't like with migraines, with anything. There's all sorts of different things that trigger things.
Oh, yeah.
So are there certain things for you that you feel like trigger you into like a downward spiral?
I was in a very toxic work environment. There was 2 favorites, and if you weren't one of them, then you didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't hide it, and they basically said it.
Oh.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
Yeah.
it was the point where I cried every day at work. I cried every day when I left work. And that was really, really hard. But, I had been there so long and had so much, vacation time and everything else. So I was very lucky, and I was able to find another position in another department. And my bosses and my coworkers are absolutely amazing, and they're
Right.
so positive and supportive, and that still got to keep all the vacation time
It just
and
makes a big
everything,
difference.
and it
though.
makes such a big difference, not being told that you're not good enough.
Right.
So
I can understand that because before, doing what I do now, I was in as a business office manager working in a very high tense crazy environment, and it was I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until I actually left, because it was causing me health problems. The stress levels were just causing me so much toxins in my body that it was basically causing my body to rebel against me, and it was making me sick all the time. And it was, so yeah, I mean, I had to basically get out of that environment completely in order to get myself back to a healthier place. Yeah, it was, yeah. And it's like people ask me now, well, you could do that again. I'm like, I really don't want to.
right, and I've been away from them for 2 months, but they came to give me my annual review, just because I was there for that whole year.
Okay.
And it was horrible. Never had a review like that in the 13 years I've been with this company.
Wow.
And I mean, it put me almost right back into that spot.
Yeah.
And when I came back, you know, my new boss and coworkers are like, you know, did everything go okay? And I was like, no, it was awful. And they're like, don't worry about it. You're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And someone else, and like, I've only been in this new position 2 months. They're like, don't worry, you're with family now.
Aw.
You're
Yeah.
here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they really
Yeah.
counteract the negativity I had.
Uh-huh.
So it was
Well,
very
that's
nice.
good. I'm glad you're in a different environment and got out of that, because I tell you, it is. It will. You don't realize the issues that it causes. with
Oh,
you.
the physical.
The physical,
Mhm.
emotional, and just the high stress level is just ridiculous.
Yeah, last year I ended up in the hospital.
Ugh.
So I understand.
Yeah.
And
You know, and as me as a single mom, I know you understand this too. You get it. You need to be healthy for your kids. You know, you need to be there. You need to be present. You know, because they need you.
Right.
And you need you.
Exactly.
Any other triggers?
In regards to, well, I mean, for me, I know dates tend to get me into,
Yep.
particular moods. My husband's birthday, the anniversary of his death, things like that just kind of make me, and I try to distract myself, well, like, like most of the 4th of July is my husband's birthday. And so we try and make it a celebration instead of a pity party,
Right.
and so we always get fireworks and shoot up fireworks and try and, just have it as a praise thing, as opposed to, yeah, we're sad he's not here, but hopefully he enjoys the show from where he's at. So, so that kind of tries to redirect. And so, like on the anniversary of his death, and it's during the holidays, which is a really hard time anyway. And so it's like we try and find ways of just doing something that's fun together as a family, going to a movie, doing, something fun,
Right.
to pull us away from that, bad place.
Yeah, I have things with dates too.
Yes.
So with the baby that we lost, the day that we lost the baby is obviously a really rough day, but because we were so far into the pregnancy and with everything, like obviously we knew like exactly when the baby was coming, because of the medical situation surrounding like everything with that. It was a scheduled C-section. So on the day that would have been the baby's birthday, Ashley and I do something special every year. We always have. So we do that. And then there's like some other dates. Like there's dates of like, I mean, I'm divorced now. And so like what was our anniversary is like a super weird day for me. I'm always like, I don't know. Like it's just awkward because I never thought I would be divorced. I'm that person that like I feel like a hypocrite because I don't even exactly believe in divorce. I mean, but like obviously in extreme situations, but yeah, so like that's a weird one. But also like there's some other things, like that's why I have to be careful with music, because music can just as quickly as it can lift
True.
me up, like
Oh, true.
sometimes I can be in a car and a song
Oh, yeah.
will hit me and I'm just like the very first, like you guys know I love Brett Young, I think. Which by the way, he was in town on Thursday.
I know.
But I love Brett Young, and I feel like for a while his songs were like right along with what was happening in my life. I mean, like every time one would come out, it was like exactly at the point I was dealing with the situation. And when his song Mercy came out, like the first time I heard it, I was listening, I'd gotten it, like we were doing reviews or something, but I was just like listening through all these different things that we had gotten from like record labels and stuff. And like I was in my car and that song came on and I had to pull off the road. I was like sobbing and I was just like, okay, like need to get it together. And it's one of my favorite songs, but I have to be really careful with it, like that. And like there's a couple others and like songs that obviously were like significant in other situations. I mean, Matchbox 20 is one of my very favorite bands and has always been my favorite band. I know it's one of yours too.
Yes, love them.
But there's a couple, like there are certain times like that is not what I should be listening to.
Right.
Or there's times like there's like when I was working Country Stampede, and the number of bands that cover Matchbox 20 is kind of a little completely ridiculous.
That's
I mean,
weird.
not that I'm like complaining, but like there's some that I know do because I've heard it enough times. But yeah, like there was a huge number that covered it at Country Stampede, and 3 songs specifically, and like they just, and the first couple times it just like completely caught me off guard, and like I'm like tearing up, and I'm just like, okay, no, like I have to step away from this. So I have to be careful with those two. And I mean, like, obviously I had a wedding song at one point in my life, and I mean, I have those songs with other people, and I'm just, I mean, I have to be like kind of careful with that. And that's a weird one for me because I love music so much, and music almost always can lift me up, but then there's a few songs that I feel like get me so quickly inside my head.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot of songs that, have significant meaning in my life. You know, Lone Star is Amazed,
Yep.
you know, things like that. One, though, that probably gets me the most because it's got a vast array is You Are My Sunshine. And
Yeah, I can't do that one.
because I used
Either.
to sing it to my children
Mhm.
when they were young, as well as when Jared was sick in the hospital. His mother and I sang to him. And then, oddly enough, at his funeral, somebody found a version that Johnny Cash did, which Johnny Cash was one of my husband's favorites.
Yeah.
And so him singing that song, literally, it about knocked me over. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I was just literally bawling,
Yeah.
you know. And granted, it was my husband's funeral, but still, it was like seriously, receptors were going off in my brain, like, you know,
Yeah.
electrocution or
And see,
something.
I have a totally different memory of that song. My memory of that song is my sister had this little elephant. She called it Nellyphant when we were little, and it played that song. So to me, it's a childhood happy memory.
Right.
Well, I mean, it does have happy
Yeah, no,
memories,
exactly.
but it also has some
Yeah.
some bittersweet memories because that was just one of those things. My husband's nickname for me was Sunshine, and you know, it's like that's one of the things. And it's like, actually, there's a plaque that my mother-in-law got me that's on our wall. It's the song basically, you know. And we did, when we had our nursery for the kids, we had You Are My Sunshine all over the nursery, and my friend painted a sunshine on it. I mean, that's just, it's got ups and downs significance to me, but it's like just the whole, you know, Johnny Cash singing it too, just like, whoa, you know, just.
Well, and I think that's a significant thing to point out is that people always assume that it's harder to remember negative memories, and I actually do not think that's true at all. Like, negative memories, like, I feel like you can forget those easily. And I mean, like, in anything, like with somebody that's passed away, with like, I know this comes up a lot, like in relationship topics, like when you've moved on, everybody is always like, oh, well, people only remember the negative, or people only remember this. And I'm probably wired differently than people, but I tend to like forget the negative and like remember the positive, and then it's the positive memories that cause the pain, like, because that's like the loss. Like, you don't, because the negative stuff, like, you're glad that part's gone. It's the loss of like the positive things. So even like in both of those situations, like, even though that was a positive memory at the time, it's the loss of those positive things that makes it so significant.
See, I feel like music is an empowerment for me. I think mostly it's because I listen to worship music. I listen to 88.3 and K-Love and stuff like that, and it just like empowers me and makes me want to do better. So I think it's more of what you put in your mind and in your brain too is what affects that as well, because listening to that kind of music, it lifts you up, makes you want to do better, and then listening to other kind of music, it triggers different things because you're with other people with other things.
True.
Right.
And I do
So-
love
But
worship music. Worship music does mean a lot to me too. I will go around singing it a lot.
I do too. And I have like a worship music station and stuff, but I also like worship music can like kind of slap you in the face too. Like, I've been known to like bawl at church over worship music that like gets where you go into, and it doesn't, I'm not saying that like puts me in a negative space, but it's still like kind of like a raw feeling, you know, like,
that's
so
what
it's
I would
still
say raw. Just kind of opens up those emotions, and you're like, whoo.
Right. But I think that's why like now I have like very specific playlists, because I just know, like, even though some of those songs are like my favorite songs of all times, like and I can listen to them some days and be totally fine, and then some days I'm like it will make me angry that I'm like, this was my favorite song and now I can't listen to it, you know, like there's like an almost like a resentment built up around it, and then so then that's when I'm like, okay, well, I'm listening to this other stuff and it can lift me up. But that's why music is so kind of iffy for me.
It's interesting because I mean, a lot of times I'll hear songs on the radio as I'm driving too, you know, and you know, people are like, why does that song not necessarily make you sad? I mean, because it made me remember a happy time,
Right.
and stuff like
Different
that.
emotions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and it's like, or just different things that I see, you know, obviously for me, singing Brinks Trucks always makes me
Right.
smile, even though most people are like, well, why didn't that make you sad? It doesn't make me sad because it brings me back to memories of when when he would be at work, and sometimes I would accidentally run into him, you know, and he'd be in his truck and we'd make faces at each other. And
Yeah.
so his partner would always think we were crazy just because we would, stick our tongues out at each other, or just, sometimes little kisses, weird things like that. And we were just, and of course I usually, even if I see one now, I'll wave. I'm sure that guys probably think I'm crazy, I'm some crazy person, but
I would totally do that too. So
I
no
feel like
worries.
I'm waving at him,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's just one of those weird things, and it's like, it makes me happy just to see that. It's kind of like his way of saying I'm here.
Right. So with all those things and knowing like what your triggers are, and first of all, like I want to say, obviously we're not your doctors, so we're not telling you what to do, but I do think it's important, like when people are dealing with different things, like first of all, I think counseling is wonderful for everybody on the entire planet. But also I think like identifying like what your coping mechanisms are and what your triggers are, and knowing like when to use both of them is like hugely significant and helpful. And I will say, like, for a while when I was in a pretty bad place, like I have a list like you guys just saw, and it's like 99 coping skills, and I had that, and then I also had a list of like the ones that I knew like specifically helped me, and like if I could see myself like falling or getting in a bad place or whatever, they were like posted around my room because I wasn't at a point yet where I could like find them all within myself. Like when I was in that bad moment, when I was in a good moment, I could say, hey, I know this is what helps. When I was in a bad moment, I wouldn't be like, oh, do this or do this. So they were literally posted like on Post-it notes and posters around so that I could just be like, that's what I need to do. Or there would be like notes on my mirror in the bathroom, or notes like when I had my apartment, there was like notes on my fridge. There was notes like all over to like be like that constant reminder, because sometimes like you need that, like you need a constant reminder of what's important, and then like you get to the point, and then sometimes you're at a point where you're like, okay, I don't need the constant reminder, and then you have like a rough patch and you need the constant reminder again, and that's all fine.
I have things like that in my bedroom, my bathroom. I probably need to put more of it.
Right.
Because I know sometimes, especially my daughter, probably needs some reminders as to how to pull herself out of her little funk sometimes that she gets. And, I know that's probably a discussion that, I need to have with her counselor, we had to, because we're doing that. And yeah, I agree with that. Counseling, journaling, like you said, is also a good way of just sometimes writing out your emotions sometimes can help you to release them a little bit, not necessarily completely, but at least, it's kind of like the whole, talking it out with a friend helps to, sometimes you're like, oh, I just had an epiphany kind of a thing,
Well, that kind of brings us to the next thing I want to talk about. So I'm glad you said that. So like, how do you find like who your people are, like who your strong like support system is, who your people are? And then like, in addition to that, like being comfortable opening up with them, but also I know like on my personal like journey to more better mental health, I guess I would say, like, I don't know how to say it, but like I have a counselor. Like I pretty openly talk about my counselor. You guys have all heard me talk about her. She's amazing. And I will say, if you think you need a counselor and you've gone to some that are terrible, do not give up. Because I went to some that I hated in the past and I felt like made everything worse. And mine now is like a lifesaver. I love her so much. But like in different things, and she talks about like the growing pains I have now, because in my journey to like better, stronger mental health, like it's made a huge gap between people in my life that are not on the same journey to stronger mental health. And like, whereas before it wasn't as noticeable to me, it is now. And so I've had to kind of like tighten, not only did I have to find who my support system is, but then I had to kind of make it smaller. And some people that I thought were going to be like my people for forever, I had to learn, you're probably not my person. So like in a friend's, like not saying like husband relationship, whatever. I mean, maybe that too, but and that might happen in my life. But also I mean, my husband was gone
Yeah.
well before that, but relationship situations, some of those had to
Yes.
go away.
Mhm.
But like in a friend setting, even, and sometimes even family, like sometimes family members can be the toxic people.
Oh,
So
yes.
how do you find your people? How do you then like also remove the people that maybe are not on the same journey to happiness and mental health that you're on?
For me, I have a family member that I don't necessarily feel is supportive, and I just don't see them that often. I have unfollowed them on social media.
Gotcha.
That way, we're still friends, so they don't know that, we're
Right.
not. I have found all of you, obviously, through Mary Kay.
Mhm.
And you guys are my closest friends now. I have a few close friends I've met through work. And through that experience at work, I really found out who my true friends were.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'm still friends with a couple people I used to work with that were, they were my support system. They were like, they could tell that things were going bad and were worried about me, And once
Yeah.
I got out, they pointed out to me that, things were health wise were getting better because I was out of that situation. And whereas I didn't see it right away, you know.
Yeah.
And I always thought, for myself, I felt like I was a failure because I couldn't deal with the job that was causing me so much pain. I know for me too, one of my best friends, we've been best friends since we were kids.
Yeah.
And we actually had a time period where we were not per se in contact with each other during our early years of our marriages and stuff like that. And then we got reconnected, strangely enough, through Facebook. And, we became even tighter than we were before. There's people that, that I was friends with in college too, that I've reconnected with. And then, yeah, my Mary Kay sisters, I would say, especially the ones that I feel the closest to are ones that I just somehow we just click, and it's just like you just
Yeah.
know in your mind that I'm not saying I don't necessarily like or talk to all of them. It's just that some of you guys I feel like I can speak to freely and not feel judged or not feel like
Yes.
you're gonna like tell me that I'm just the most crazy or horrible person in the world,
Yeah.
for feeling the feelings that we feel, and it's like I just, I try to put on a positive face when we're in those settings where we have to be,
Right.
but when we are just hanging out with each other, we can be real, we can be honest, we can
Right.
talk about what we want to talk about and not feel like we're being judged about it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, with me, I feel like how I find my people in my group is the ones that come to me with open arms, the ones that are there for me no matter what, like through thick and thin, no matter if it's a sad time or a happy time. Like they're always there no matter what.
Mhm.
And they're going to uplift me and they're going to help me through things. And then, like, no matter what, they're going to talk to me. They're not just going to be like, just walk past me. They're going to acknowledge me. And, like, if you acknowledge us, then we, like, me personally, I don't know about you guys, but if you acknowledge me, I will put the forth and effort into our relation, like our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, then I feel like I'm not going to be open and honest with this person because they're not open and honest with me.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's kind of how I pick and choose my people of who I can be outright blunt with and tell them like everything. Than people that don't do that with me.
Right. I think all those things are hugely important. I do all of that. I also, like, for me, it was important to realize, my mom says this a lot, like, if you don't value, like, if somebody, like, in a leadership role, like, at work, I used to have a boss that was terrible. Like, it was when I was teaching, she was awful. I mean, I won't go into it, but then, like, her opinion of me would always, like, really get me down.
Yeah.
And my mom would be like, okay, well, if you don't value, like how she handles things, and why are you valuing her opinion of you?
Mhm.
So like when I think about my group, I think of like, do they value the same things I value? First of all, like, do they like, are their core values similar to my core values? And I think core values do change over time, but ultimately, I mean, kind of your core values are your core values. So I think like if they have similar core values to you, and just the people you feel, I mean, sometimes it's just like a chemistry connection that you just know, like on any level, like friendship, relationship, whatever, you kind of just know if you can, be open and honest. And admittedly, sometimes people surprise you and you learn that you were completely wrong, either one way or the other.
Yep.
I'm sure we've all had that
Oh,
experience.
yeah.
But like you said, like people that are there for you no matter what. I mean, my health has been a disaster, as you guys know, but I mean, I have like certain people, well, all of you guys, and like some other people that, check on me regularly and like want to know like what's going on. And I have other people that assume, like after I got my car accident 5 years ago, I had people that didn't understand why, like when they're inviting me out to like a concert and I can't go because I have a migraine. And I mean, yes, I have a media company now, but media company people aren't just like out in the audience typically. But I can't just go do that. And so they, instead of like understanding the situation, got frustrated and then just weren't around. So, I had to learn that. But I also just kind of like, like people, I need people that are there in the happy times and the sad times, but also, want to go out and we can do things that are enjoyable together. Like, yes, we all do Mary Kay together, but also we can go out to dinner, or we can go to the comedy club, or we can go like have a campfire or whatever. And like, if we can all like hang out in those situations, like I need people in my life that are there in a variety of settings, situations, and different life experiences, I think.
Yes.
And you need a variety of friends, not just a couple that are like the same. Like, you need a variety.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally.
And then I will also say, and you guys know this, but with my support system, like I use my support system for a lot of things, but I also use it to check myself a lot. Like a lot, guys, a lot. They'll get messages from me that are like, hey, so this situation happened and here's how I'm feeling. Could you tell me if this is reasonable? Because I know, like, I mean, not to like stereotype women, but we're women. We get overly emotional in certain situations
Yes.
sometimes. And I don't know if sometimes my emotions are getting the best of me. And like, there's times I'm like, okay, this is really bothering me. And is that reasonable? And I mean, if somebody is my true friend, they are comfortable saying, yes, this is reasonable, or saying, no, you're being a little crazy right now.
Or just basically, being blunt with you and saying, I think you overact just a little bit there.
Right.
You really dial it back. And, because I mean, I know that we've discussed like just the issues that I've had with my daughter, my teenage daughter, and just the emotions that we've dealt with there. Because I mean, the problem I have with my daughters were very similar, but yet we're different enough that it just, we clash like this all the time.
Right.
And sometimes I know I probably overreact, because she does tend to get to my emotions very easily and just push my buttons very easily. And sometimes I react and say things or do things that I know I probably should. After I did it, it's like, I should have not done that, or said that, or, and then I bounce it off of Katie and say, and she's like, well, maybe you should have done that. And I have gone times where I've said, I'm sorry to my child because I did overreact. And then sometimes she overreacts too. Yep. So, I mean, that's the way it is.
I think that's just whenever you're so into, like, obviously you love your child.
Yes,
so, like,
obviously.
you will say anything to them because you know they're going to love you no matter what. And I feel like that is a problem here, like, in this today's society, because, like, you say things to your loved ones and your, like, closest friends that, like, they love you no matter what. Like, that's awesome. That's how you find your group of core people. But I feel like that's how you know when you love somebody, because you will tell them no matter what. You'll be blunt and you'll say things you're like, well, I shouldn't have said that. Like, not like it was like it needed to be said, but just like, I didn't mean it like that type thing.
Or maybe I could have phrased it differently, or I could, that came out wrong,
That happens to me a lot.
You just say, I'm sorry, and you.
I probably shouldn't have worded it that way, or, and for me too, it takes me also stepping back from the situation cooling off, thinking things through, talking it out with people, and then I'm like, okay, I can approach this differently now, Yeah.
Right. I also, like, in addition to that, with like checking my emotions, you guys know, like, I use when I don't completely trust myself. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but like, no, I have learned from past super toxic situations that I ignored that I clearly don't always notice, like, blatantly obvious like red flags about situations, or like earlier we were talking about memories, and I'm quick to forget the bad memories and remember the good ones. So I'm super quick to like forgive and forget and like get myself back in bad situations. So I also use my support system for that. Like, they've met people like sometimes earlier in situations that I used to in the past to be like, hey, I need you to, like, I'm not seeing red flags, but I've been real dumb before. So like, could you tell me if there's like these? So I use them for a lot of things. And also there's been times, I mean, Chris specifically, there was somebody where she was like, okay, I think this person is a great person to have in your life, but like what they're wanting from you, I don't think is great. And so like we kind of like talked about how that relationship might need to change, like, because that person was wanting more than a friendship, and
a matter of communicating that more clearly to that person. And if they don't react positively to that, maybe that's a sign too. That it's like, okay,
right. And
Yeah.
so like I've talked to her about things like that, been like, I apparently got myself in a real dumb situation. And then and then other times like I've had them meet people, and not just guys, I mean sometimes guys, but other times like other people too, just in general. Like there's other people that I'm like, hey, like this person seems like pretty cool to hang out with. Or like Chris has even sat in on some of like my media team conversations, because I've been like, we're going through like some things, and I need another set of ears to like help me like kind of not mediate, but like when the team's like growing so fast and like I'm trying to like assign different things, I'm like, I need somebody else to like be my set of ears and things, because like the media company is my baby, and I know that I get super like invested and protected of that. And so I need somebody else to like that has like a complete outsider to that situation to have like an open view on some of the conversations. So I think support systems can do a lot
And
of.
sometimes you just need to have a come to Jesus meeting with some people and just say, hey, fish or cut bait,
Yeah, I've had to do that a few times. She's usually like, excuse me, I need you to have this conversation now.
This person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and then she tells me that a whole bunch of times, and then
Well,
eventually.
but, I mean, you can give some people so much grace, but sometimes you just have to say, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah, and I think having the people that are like there for you to back you up on that makes that easier. Because in the past I would let things go and I'd be like, well, maybe it's just me. But now having like a strong like support system, and when people bring it to me like, hey, like I don't think they're treating you right, or with like different business situations, hey, you're stressed out because this person is not doing their job, like consistently not doing their job, and you're trying to be nice about it, but like you need to address it because we care about you and we hate seeing you stressed out every day. And I know like some of you guys have had that conversation with me, I've had that conversation with some of you guys, but like having people that are like okay bringing that to you, I think makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I feel bad for people that don't have that. Like my kids, they don't get along with their dad's wife, and they won't say stepmom, they say dad's wife. And they have been like that since before the marriage, and they both have said they genuinely think their dad isn't happy, but that he is in there because he doesn't want to be alone.
Right.
And
or maybe he doesn't want to be a failure again, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And so but they don't have that relationship that they can say that to him.
Right.
And it makes me kind of sad for him.
That's true.
Because
yeah.
My kids, oh my gosh, they say things to me all the time, and it's not about dates or anything else. I mean, if I walk in and they don't like what I'm wearing, they'll just be like, that is so ugly, Mom. I don't know what you're thinking. Or, you're so old. Oh my gosh. For my 30-something birthday, I got a card that said happy 100th.
That's a knife to the heart.
I mean,
But
Ashley's,
but I like that they're so open.
I mean, Ashley's pretty blunt. with
And
me
maybe
about
they're
things.
trying to be facetious or
I don't know. I
ornery or I don't know.
yeah, I think it's really ornery, but I like having that open relationship with my kids, that they feel like that, because I think if I did start dating someone that they didn't like, that they would right away be like, yeah, Mom, I don't think so.
I mean,
Yeah.
I get
And
I get the same
I
man.
honestly would be like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry, my kids don't like you, you're out the door.
I mean,
Right.
I mean, I get the same thing because I mean, actually, like in regards to the age thing, opposite. You know, like the other day I said something about just me being old. Not that I necessarily feel that all the time.
Oh, I don't feel like it.
But my daughter was like, "Mom, you're not old." And
Ashley does that to me too.
I appreciate
And then
that.
calls
I
me old
appreciate
later.
that she sees me that way, and I really do. But then, yeah, in regards to the dating thing, because I did not, a while back, I dated somebody who, it was pretty clear, especially to my daughter, she was just like, I did not like him, and and it just became just really blatantly obvious to me that I was just like, yeah, this guy is not going to work. No.
yeah, I mean, you got to take their opinion.
I know.
So it's not just your circle of friends, but you need to really listen to your family.
Well, and
too,
explaining-
those closest to you.
explaining to him, and obviously he was not understanding that I'm a package deal. I come with 2 kids, 3 dogs, a cat, and now 2 turtles. Won't go there. It's just one of those things. It's like, if you can't take all of us, you're not getting any of us.
Right, and it doesn't even matter if the kids live with you or not.
I know. Right.
I mean, it's that's it.
Even when my kids become adults, I'm sure that they're going to have an opinion.
Which
They
is
will.
where I'm at,
Yeah.
because my youngest son told me last night that he wants to move out soon.
Oh.
Knife in the
Right.
heart. I
Yeah,
said, no,
another one. Right?
you're not
Yeah.
18.
You're
And
not.
he's like, well, I will be in a few months.
You're
He
like,
said, well, I'm not planning on moving out till I'm 18. But then I will have an empty house.
Oh.
I'll be an empty nester
oof,
before the end of the year. And so,
just kind of makes you go,
right.
Yeah.
You got a ways to go.
You definitely have a ways on that. But I
And
mean,
sometimes, and you're going to look at me like, I'm kind of jealous.
No, I have to go
No,
escape to Jenny's
no.
house.
Oh, my kids
That
can
is-
come over.
Absolutely. I'll be like, please bring your kids. They need to come see my new puppy.
oh, they would definitely like that. Totally. Yes.
Come see her.
Nothing like rolling on the floor with a puppy dog. I can tell ya. Oh, except their little sharp teeth. Oh,
Yes.
Sorry,
Oh, we
we've
got
lost all control. At this
okay,
point,
we have
guys.
lost.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
We've gone
Puppies.
down. We've
Puppies
gone,
come up and we're off the deep end.
See, talk about emotions though. Puppies make us happy.
There, we should have said puppies earlier.
Puppies make you happy.
Yes. She makes me happy.
Yep. Okay, so last topic, I think. I say that a lot and then something else comes up. But so we know we've talked about negative emotions a lot and like avoiding negative emotions. We also know that there's this huge, I don't know if it's like a societal push, at least on social media, but I think in society and in different things for like the constant positive. So I know that it's important for us to avoid people that are always negative. Like that can obviously bring us down. But what then in like stark contrast, maybe or maybe not, like avoiding the constant positive. And so also knowing,
Pollyannas.
yes, and so knowing very much that like positivity is important, but for mental health reasons, like it's important to express all emotions. And like the difference in being like an optimist, like after, by definition, like the difference in being like optimistic and like a positive person and positive and being like toxic positivity. So being optimistic means that you realize that there are negative things, but that there's a solution to get through the negative to get to the positive. Whereas toxic positivity is everything's wonderful all the time. They're the people that like when you say like, oh, well, something bad happened, like they don't even acknowledge that it's bad. It happened because of this good reason, like, so it's always positive no matter what. So first of all, how does that make you feel when you see that? But then how do you like regulate yourself on your levels of negative and positive, and like what situations do you avoid?
I don't like it will all be okay kind of feeling because
Mhm.
you're not acknowledging that there's the negative emotion or what I'm going through.
Mhm.
Right.
And how I regulate is if I'm feeling down or I have a negative situation, I know that I am, and I try to work through it, whether it's through my support system. Recently I went out of town with some people and I had a couple struggles, and, I went through my support system and let them know what was going on, which made me feel better. Or, something at home, whether it's my cleaning or something like that, that will make me
Well, and
feel
you were out
better.
of town, so you couldn't clean it.
Right. Right. Just something that will make me just more maybe in control of myself to, make myself feel more positive, but I still am acknowledging what's going on and what can I do to fix the situation.
Got it.
I mean, like I said, Pollyanna's, of course you said that, and the song that popped into my head, and you're probably going to laugh, is that, Lego song, everything is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's like, just trying, I know for myself, just trying to, obviously talking with those that totally, get me, understand, or can kind of work me back out of any situation. But I mean, people that are always, or project themselves as always positive people, it's like you can take them in small doses, but you have to be, sometimes it's like, okay, let's be real.
Yeah.
Not everything is, I mean, granted, it's a way of kind of pulling yourself out by trying to be positive, but it's like you have to be real about it and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is, how I feel. I can't always be positive, and just finding those people that you can be real with that help to, come back to some sort of reality, work your way through it, kind of, talk it out, and going, it's hard sometimes though when you're in an environment where you can't per se step away from either the Pollyannas or the negative people, and you're kind of forced to be in those situations with them. And you're like, help me,
Right. In that situation, I found someone that I can be my authentic self with, that I was lucky enough to have there.
Yeah.
And we broke away from the larger group
and that helps too,
went our own way.
Right.
And
I
I
know
was
we
able
did
to
that
tell
too.
her what my situation is,
Right.
why I was upset, and
she understood.
and she understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she,
And she accepted it.
Yeah.
And then you guys worked through it, and then you guys were positive later. It wasn't
Right.
like you were down the whole time.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
And you found ways of having some fun together and saying, hey, this is our fun. This is what,
Right.
Yeah, maybe everybody else is at the pool, but we're going and doing this, and we're having fun doing this, and
Right.
Well, and like if you are always positive, like if you're that person that's always positive all the time, there's nothing ever negative, it makes you like you bottle everything up and you can't get anything out, and then
which is so
it's going to
unhealthy.
be it's so unhealthy, and it's going to be worse later on whenever you finally let it all out. I used to be one of those people, and so that's my input on it. Like, you need to at least let it out. Don't be a negative Nancy like 24/7. I mean, just have your little pity
There's
party.
got to be a
and then
happy
get over it.
medium.
Right.
There's got to be a happy medium, because otherwise, if you're always positive, but you're brewing underneath, and you have this volcano explosion, and that's not happy. That's not good. But you can't always be like, bleh, bleh,
Right. And well,
over
that's
everybody.
that's what I was saying before. So like, if you're positive all the time or you're negative all the time, either one, then really you're just neutral all the time. You have to have ups and downs for one to seem positive and one to seem negative. Otherwise, you just live in a constant state of neutral, which, by the way, a constant state of neutral is oftentimes where like depression sets in. It's when you don't have ups and downs. So for me, I try to avoid both. Like, I don't want to be around somebody that can never see the positive, and I also don't want to be around somebody that can never see the negative, because I feel like neither situation is healthy, but also neither situation is realistic.
Mhm.
And I feel like those people, like, as much as I would love to help them, and I used to be that person that tried to jump in and save everybody, and so that's what I would gravitate towards. Now I've learned that it just, like, they're not at a place and I can't save them, so I just kind of avoid both situations. I avoid both because I feel like neither set are people that are being real with themselves, and if they're not being real with themselves, they're also not going to be real with me.
Yeah. I know my daughter accuses me of being too realistic though. And it's like, I used to be like what I'd call a dreamer. I used to, like, always try and see the positive in things and stuff like that. But yet, since I've kind of gotten rocked a few times by some things in my life, it makes me go, okay, is that realistic? And so that's usually what I stop and do a lot of times. Is that a realistic solution to that problem, or is that a realistic,
Right.
is this going to be real,
When I think everything has to have a happy medium. Like, you still have to be able to, like, have your dreams and things without being
I know.
like, yes, I would love to do this someday, whether or not it's realistic. But that can't be your only focus. You have to have some realism mixed in with the
Or you're
dream.
always gonna feel like you're failing.
Yes.
Well, I think with me, it's like, okay, for example, I love my daughter. She's amazing. She's an awesome student and athlete and everything. But she's always kind of had this, like, when I get, when I turn 18, I'll move out and I'll get myself a really great car and a house and all this stuff. I'm like, but how are you going to get there? That's me. And she's like, you're being a downer. And I'm like, no, I'm just being realistic. Like,
Yeah.
how do you get there? Yes, that's great. I wish that I could have, when I moved away from home when I was 18, could have gotten a really great car and really great. It didn't happen until, like, late 20s. It
Right.
took me time to get there.
Right. And
You know.
and like I've been trying to stay positive. I've had, oh my goodness, so many things this week that have just, like, shook me, that oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But one of the things I had at one of our Mary Kay events, Sean Key said,
Mm-hmm.
he said that he really, really wanted this job and he did everything he could for it,
Mhm.
and then he didn't get it. And so he went home, and it was like a Friday night.
Oh yeah, I remember
And he
that.
Yes, I know
said,
that story.
okay, I have till I'm giving myself till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was like 30 hours for a pity party.
Yeah, for a pity party.
Yeah.
And then he said for like an hour, and then he's like, oh, I have 2 hours left. And he said I couldn't even make it 3 hours. And then, he went in on that next Monday and was like, oh, we should take out, so-and-so that got the job to lunch. And just being positive
Uh-huh.
after the fact, after, working through the emotions, he ended up getting an even better job.
Yeah.
But, he said, okay, I'm setting aside this much time. And he, gave it a time limit that, okay, I'm going to do this as my pity party.
Right.
And I really liked that, and it stuck with me.
Set aside pity party time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, there's it's another meme that's gone around Facebook, but it says, like, the people that are like, oh, it's going to be fine, just get through it. And then it's like, okay, I know it's going to be fine, but just let me, I'm going to be sad for a minute, and then I know it's going to be fine. Yeah. But as long as you're leaving it at, like, a minute, I mean, not a minute literally, but a short period of time, and then doing something to get out. I think that's why journaling kind of helped me so much, because it's, get it all out on paper and then move on to the next thing. Or like changing the environment, like, makes it easier to like distract yourself. But like he said, like, setting a set amount of time and then moving on. And then, like, also understanding that in some situations, like, being negative and being depressed and grieving are not the same thing. Like, grief is going to come back, like, because a couple of the examples we gave were like grieving things. Grief comes back over time. Like, that's different, and like that'll pop up, and like people,
waves,
and people should, be expecting that. But even like when the grief comes up, it's still like any of your coping mechanisms that you've set up can help you in those situations.
I know, and it frustrates me when people are like, well, shouldn't you be over that?
That is one of the most annoying sentences
like,
on the planet.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing that annoyed me too, like, my husband's funeral. At his funeral, I overheard somebody saying, well, she'll find somebody new. The freak?
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Or, with me, them saying, well, it's just a dog. No, it's not.
Oh, whoa, that
Yeah.
one.
She's
that
like
one,
a child.
That one
Yeah.
set me off like nobody's business, man.
Yeah.
Don't just a dog me, because
Yeah.
or just a cat.
The people that, are, have animals will understand that, no, it's not. It's like your child.
Those
Yeah.
are your fur children, and they're part of your
Well,
family.
it's like when, like, I know you mentioned you've had miscarriages and stuff like that. I actually had one as well, my third pregnancy. This was back in 2016. And people say, oh, it happens for a reason, which I understand that to a point, but like, because I can help other people through that kind of stuff,
Right.
like that. I've been through it. But then they're like, oh, well, you have 2 other beautiful kids.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant like a month after, like, it all happened and everything went down.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, okay, well, you got another one coming. Like, that people think that just because you
Right.
got pregnant again or you have kids already, it's not like a grieving thing that you go through.
No.
Yeah.
And it's not. Like, it's still a child. You don't have
Yeah.
that child. Like, I know I have 4 kids now, but still, I still think about that child. I say I have 5 kids. Like,
Right. I have the
Absolutely.
same situation. And because there's like a butterfly garden in Lee Summit that's for like infant loss, like all these different things. And they have stones. And somebody in my family was like, well, we wanted to get you a stone, but if we put a stone in there for the baby, like we feel like you wouldn't get over it and you'd still like focus on it and remember it forever. And I was like, well, you understand that's going to happen anyway, right? Like, it's not like I'm going to forget this experience.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
And mine was so like, and when people say like, well, it happened for a reason, that was really rough with mine, because in my situation, I was well into the pregnancy, but also there was nothing wrong with the baby. Like, a lot of miscarriages end because like the baby's not developing correctly. But I had an infection in my body that the doctors weren't treating right or weren't catching, and so
the death of your child.
that caused the baby to try to get away from the infection, but wasn't quite to the point where the baby could live on its own. So the baby tried to escape the infection. So then when people are like, what happened for a reason, then I really blame myself, because I'm like, well, the reason is because my body had an infection that the baby tried to get away from. So like, people don't really think through, I think, and I think they're trying to help and they're just looking for something to say, but to be aware of what you're saying, in those situations, because none of that's great. And then actually, like, after I went through all of that Luke Bryan, I mean, Chris Stapleton wrote it, but the Luke Bryan song "Drink a Beer" came out like a little while later. And like, there's a line in there that talks about like, I can't make it all make sense, like, because like in that, like, what really spoke to me at the time, like, I say that song saved my life, and it honestly might have, because everybody kept being like, well, everything's happening for a reason, and all of this, and I was like, okay, well, you guys keep telling me that, but I can't make sense of this. And then he came out with that song, and in the song he says, I can't make it all make sense. And like, I felt like, okay, well, I'm not the only one that is struggling with that. So I think like finding sometimes like when you're feeling a certain way and you're like, okay, am I crazy for feeling this way? And then you find out somebody else also feels that way, it makes it a little better.
Yeah, because we miscarried 5 times. Mine were early pregnancies, and people are like, oh, it wasn't meant to be, kind of thing. And they also would come up with that, well, there's another, and granted, yes, God did bring a different avenue for us to have children. We did foster to adopt, and we fostered 5 other kids prior to getting our 2 that we adopted. And I felt like I needed to do something to give children a better beginning in their life, as opposed to some of the beginnings that some of them had. And I felt like I did that, but then there was, when Rain and Elias came along, it was just like, my husband said, these are our kids. These are our kids. They were born for us, and so that was just like, but yeah, it's like, it's different though. It's like, I still grieve those opportunities to have those children, and to, I still picture those kids in my mind and what they probably would have looked like, or, things like that. And, it's like my nephew, Jared's nephew, and his wife, they just recently had a little boy that looks like my husband. And I'm like, that's what one of our kids probably would have looked like. I mean, just the big Cupid doll face and the big blue eyes. I can just see that, it's just like in my mind, those were, what our kids would have looked like. And that's, so you can't diminish that feeling. You can't shove it under the rug and say, well, it was meant to be, or this is what, you know,
Right.
no, don't even go there, you
Well,
know?
Right.
I've had people tell me, well, something probably was wrong with it, so it's probably better off that way.
I've
And I'm
had
like,
people say that too. That's
I'm like, I don't care.
Well,
Like, I would love the kid no matter
yes,
what. Like,
yes.
Well, and my issue was my hormones. My hormones were very not nice,
Mhm.
and they basically would just
Attack, yeah.
attack my child, you know, every time.
see,
And
I didn't know. My doctor told me that probably because of my diabetes, and I'm like, okay, well, I've had
you had 2
a
children, though.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's all been the same. So, like, to me, it's like, well, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? Like,
Right.
and I put it in my head because like people were telling me it was basically my fault.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
my doctor was even telling me that. So like
I had the same.
that's how you like have to go at it like different with some people with different things because you can't just try to make it all better because it doesn't. It makes it worse sometimes. So yeah, because I've had that.
Yep.
I've had a lot of things told me about that. and it's not-
Yeah. Well, I know for myself too, in regards to my husband's death, I psychoanalyzed everything too because of, you know, he, I thought things were getting better, he was feeling better, stuff like that. And then all of a sudden he got sick and it happened within a 24-hour period.
Mhm.
And I thought, was there something I missed? Was there something I could have done? Could I, you know,
Right.
Mhm.
but the problem is that his body, because of what he had been through before with the spider bite, had caused his immune system to be crap.
Fail. Yeah.
And so he had no defensive mechanisms to fight any kind of infection. And so when he got an infection or a virus in his bloodstream, it basically just attacked his entire body. And he had no way of defending himself from the inside out. So, you know, but I still, you know, it took me months to not psychoanalyze what I could have done, should have done, and I
Mhm.
blame myself for a long time because of it, you know. And I'm sure with like even kids, you know, oh, could I have eaten better? Could I have done this? You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go through everything.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, so in closing up, sorry, we've talked a lot. This is not a short program anymore. We've exceeded that point of this conversation. What's like one piece of advice you would give to somebody that feels like they can't break out of, like that they're going through some rough times, they need to break out of it?
Just acknowledge your feelings of, you know, being upset or whatever you're going through, and know that you can, it will get better. You know, you have to work for it, but you know, you can do something to change whatever you're going through.
Know that you will have still, you know, rough times, but also always know that to find a support system, to find people that can either support you, call you on your shit, you know, whatever you need in order to get out of that place. And also, you know, counseling has been helping me too, and that's a big deal, you know. No, you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
No.
And like number one is like I'm a very godly person. I would pray about it, talk to God about it, and then reach out to like your friends and family that are actually there for you, the good ones, not like the toxic ones, and then just try to like focus in and know your worth, like know that you are good enough, and that yes, you will get through it. It just takes time, and just make for sure that you are talking about it because you don't want to bottle it up.
No.
Yeah. So I think being true to yourself and acknowledging your emotions, all of them, not just either the negative or just the positive, but also being aware that there's nothing wrong with you. Like just because you're not always positive or just because of you're like stuck in this negative cycle, there's nothing wrong with you and that you're not alone and that you need to like find your people that you can be yourself with and that it's okay to be open. Like mental health is something that I feel like has kind of like been like a taboo topic, but it's okay to talk. Like if you're having an awesome day, say you're having an awesome day. If you're having a bad day, say you're having a bad day, but it's okay to like also talk about like where you're at mentally and be open with those, especially maybe not everybody because that can create issues, but like especially like your support system, like be open with them because if they don't know what's going on with you, they can't help you. And obviously you have to help yourself, but they're there to help you too.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to us and joining us on this, what was supposed to be a summer short and maybe isn't that short, episode of Walking with God with Kyle Walker. I'll be back sometime. They won't, but